Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in, especially those who are watching late at night or somewhere around the world that's remote. I appreciate your attention and connection. Quick announcement, a lot of you have asked questions or want to discuss things in the chat under the YouTube, and so I'm setting up a new feature in my world called the Coaching Room, which will be a live Zoom interactive room every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. It's going to replace my live radio show. So if you'd like to chat with me on video or audio and ask a question or get some coaching or make a comment, that'll be a way to do it. So go to my website, alancohen.com, and you'll find instructions to get to the coaching room there. It'll start in July, on July 2nd. A friend of mine had a father who was a television repairman back in the 1950s. And in those days, TVs had tubes, not printed circuits. And one day this man was called to repair the TV of an old man who was living by himself. And the friend came and there was a tube that was missing, oddly, from the TV. So quickly he replaced the tube. And the man invited him to sit down, have some coffee, and have a chat. And they did for a little while since he had replaced the tube quite quickly. And he went on his way. Well, the next week, the repairman gets another call, please come back. And once again, there's a different tube that's missing. And once again, he replaced it and he chatted with the fellow for 20 minutes and they had a nice time and he went home. Third week, he comes back, there's a different tube that's missing. How are these tubes missing? Well, finally, the repairman figured out that this old man was lonely and he wanted somebody to talk to. He wanted somebody in his house. And so he created the drama of a missing tube in order to get the TV repairman to come and be with him for 20 or 30 minutes. And to me, this is symbolic of the fact that we are craving for connection, and that element of human-to-human contact is the most important element of our life. Now, a friend of mine is a Course in Miracles teacher. He said, well, one morning you wake up and you realize you like some French toast for breakfast and you realize you don't have any eggs. And so you go down to the corner convenience store and you pick up some eggs and you chat with the guy at the counter that you know. How's your son doing? Oh, he's doing much better. I don't know. So the Course in Miracles teacher asked, what was the purpose of that man's visit to the convenience store? Well, on an ostensible level, you might say that he went to get some eggs. But eggs are material, and human connection is spiritual. So he really went to have a conversation with that man and have just a minute of joining and lifting above the mundane realities of buying eggs. How's your son doing? That's important when somebody asks you that. So we live in an age where we seem to be more connected, but maybe not really. Someone took a survey before social media, and they asked people, how many close friends do you have? And the answer was roughly 10. And then after Facebook and lots of social media, they asked the same question, and the average number was 2. So even though we have a lot more virtual friends, we have fewer real friends. Posting photos of your lunch is not a form of intimate connection. There's more to it than that. There's a reason we don't have photos of our office at home. We do have photos of our home and kids and vacations at our office because our families and our loved ones, they're pivotal points around which our lives revolve. But we would go home from the office where a lot of it is about disconnection, and you want to forget your office. You don't want to have a picture of your office in your house. Now, I used to have lots of judgments about social media until something happened. As you all know, I do a coach training. We're starting again in September, if you like. And during one of the coach trainings, we have a senior coach who was helping me, a woman roughly age 70, and she was there with her daughter. And during the training, she received the sad news that her son, in his 40s, had unexpectedly passed away. And so she had to leave early and fly back home to Chicago. And my beloved Dee, who's a very kind and caring person, thought, this lady and her daughter are not going to have any fun going home anyway. So let's see if we can get them some first-class seats to make their trip more comfortable. So Dee got on the phone and on the web, and she gathered some of our coach training graduates, and she got them to donate their frequent flyer miles. And so by the time this lady and her daughter got to the airport in Maui, they had first-class seats to Los Angeles. And then while they were en route, Dee did some more magic, and she got them people to donate first-class upgrades. She had a crazy flight to Atlanta and then back to Chicago. So by the time they were home, they had a somewhat more comfortable experience than they would have had otherwise. So social media can be used for connection. That was probably the best use of social media I've seen yet. So we can use it for connection, but we can also use it for disconnection. Now, I've traveled a lot, and I'm very keenly aware of situations in which people find ways to connect when others are not. I remember once I was traveling from a San Francisco hotel to the airport, and we were waiting for the shuttle van. And it was a summer day, and it was hot, and it was crowded, and people were bugged. You know how those vans are. They're not usually happy places. And the van pulls up, and people pile in. And the last lady to get on was a young woman who had her knee in a brace. I guess she had a surgery. She'd injured it. And she's traveling with her 6-year-old boy. And I remember the van driver getting out of his seat, and he set up a little stool, and he cleared a place for this woman by the window, and he helped her up. And he said to the little boy, he said, "Now you the man now." He said, "You got to take care of your mom, okay? She's counting on you." And he patted the boy on the fanny and put him on the van. I thought, he didn't have to do that. It was a very impersonal scene, but he took an extra minute or two to be kind to this woman and help her be more comfortable and give the boy a little pep talk. How much was that worth? These are the things that make life meaningful and valuable. Nobody else remembered that van ride, but I remember watching that man, and I watched that woman. He had to make that woman with the injured knee, to make her life a little better. So it just takes a minute, but there's this connection factor that lifts us above the sterility and the impersonality and the mundane nature of what we've made life to be, because we live so much from fear, and so much from isolation, and so much from resistance, and so much from protection. So anybody who pierces that armor and that veneer is literally bringing God and heaven to earth. God does not want us to be world saviors and do miracles and change water into wine and open Red Seas, unless that happens to be in your path. But really, world transformation happens in these little moments that would otherwise be overlooked and missed because you're busy doing something else. So, what something else are you doing that's causing you to miss what's really important? We had checks printed a while back, and you could put a little aphorism on your check, and right above the signature line we had printed, "Remember what's important." Remember what's important. And then another airport. I have lots of airport stories because I've traveled so much. But once I was coming into Kona on the Big Island, and I was also on a van going to the airport from going to the shuttle, the rental car from the airport. And the driver of this particular shuttle was a lovely gregarious, humorous Hawaiian lady. And she was just making jokes and welcoming people and where you're from and how's your vacation going. And she just lit up that van. And by the time everybody was off, they were laughing and thanking her and tipping her. It was just like she had aloha. She had a lot of aloha. She was just oozing with connection. And so I decided that I would write a note to her manager congratulating her. I was just saying, this woman's a real asset to your company. And I sent him an email. I said, she's really taking a very impersonal situation, and she's really helping your company. You should really hang on to her. She's a lovely asset to your business. So that was that. I sent it. And then a month or two later, I had to go back to Kona for something else. And I just happened to get the same van driver. We started chatting. I said, yeah, last time I was here, you were real nice, and I wrote a note to your manager. She said, that was you? She says, yeah. She says, my manager printed it out and he gave it to me. And she said, I have that framed. It's on my living room wall now. She said, that was the best thing a customer ever did for me. And, it took me about 5 minutes. It was not a big deal for me. But it turned out to be a big deal for her. And so I call that the wheel of positive karma, where she was kind and helpful and made life a little better for me. And so I did something in my own way that made life a little better for her. And, the world can be a very dreary place. I mean, there's such fear on the planet now, it's such protectionism, it's such divisionism, it's such tribalism that people have retreated to their political corners, and the guys are always wrong and we're always right. And it's a sad situation, but you and I, we all have the power to shift that. You don't have to be a political leader unless you want to, but you can just shift it during the course of your daily life. I remember seeing videos on YouTube of a truck driver held up traffic on a highway to let a little row of ducks past. A mama duck and her baby ducks were crossing the highway, and he held up traffic on both sides of the highway so these little ducks could pass. Now, you might say it's silly, what's a duck worth? But if you're the duck and you're the mama duck, it's worth a lot to you and your babies. And so, what is life but a series of opportunities to make life easier for each other? That's what George Eliot, the novelist, said. What are we here for? Except to make life easier for each other. And then Abraham Joshua Heschel, the Jewish theologian, said, when I was a young man, I respected people who were clever. But now that I'm an old man, I respect people who are kind. So I know you're all kind who are watching this, but, isn't it nice to remember the value of kindness? I had a veterinarian once. She used to come to my house with her little boy. And she was an American woman who had adopted a little Chinese boy. And this boy had been born with a withered right arm. It was either broken or withered or some way he was disabled. He could not use his right hand. And sadly, in China, there's a stigma on left-handedness. And so the mother of this child had left him on a street corner. And he had been adopted in an orphanage, and very kindly this American woman and her husband had adopted him. And I thought, come on, people, we're not in the dark ages anymore. Can we wake up? Come on, stop these old superstitions and old wives' tales and old religious dogmas and old separate dogmas. I mean, that American family saved that child's life. And he was a happy boy. He was probably 8 or 9 by the time I knew him, and he was a fun kid, and he was helping his mom with the pets, and he had a good life because somebody was kind. And so, that somebody can be you and somebody can be me. I have a friend who, one of my coach graduates, he was in the service, and he told a very stunning story. He said that he was assigned to the retrieval crew for crashes. I guess they did experimental flights for the Army. And he had the unenviable task of going to pick up the human remains after there was a plane crash. He said once he went, and it's kind of an odd image, but he said that he saw literally a human heart that was sitting on a bush after the pilot had been killed and dismembered. And he said as he saw that human heart, he was given a vision, a download of that person's life who had a family. And he just got that there had been a person who had been living in that heart. He said, although it was a terrible experience in general, he said that assignment was very liberating to him. He said because he realized that there's so much more to life than the body. And he said that the people who lived in those bodies were not those body parts. A body can be dismembered, but not a soul. And he said that was the beginning of his spiritual path, because he realized that there's more to us than flesh. And there was a soul who lived in that body and who went on. And then another guy within one of my workshops, he said that he was a soldier in Vietnam. And he says one day he was in combat and he killed a Vietnamese soldier. And he was going through his pockets afterwards. And he found a picture of his wife and child. He was a young man, a young wife and young child. And he said, that changed my entire life. He said, I realized that there's so much more to life than politics and war and getting stuff. He said, that was the beginning of my spiritual path. And I made a commitment that I would get out of that war as soon as I could, and I would never hurt another human being again. And that was his turning point. So, we all have our turning points, don't we? When something happens that stops us in our tracks and reminds us that just getting more stuff or being the winner or being right is not what life's about. It's about harmonizing. I wrote a book called Happily Even After about couples who harmonize during or after a divorce. And they all said, at some point I realized that, we're getting divorced, but we don't have to stop loving each other. We don't have to stop being supportive of each other. And so one guy said I should write a book called Divorce, the Key to a Happy Marriage, because his whole communication and connection with his wife improved after their marriage. So I'm not suggesting you get a divorce, but I am suggesting that there are so many distractions from who we really are and what we really want. And if we can just have a little discipline, a little blisscipline, to get clear on what's really important, then our lives may not change that much logistically, but they do change miraculously attitudinally. We still go to work, we still have our friends, we still have our marriage, still take our kids to soccer. But while we're doing it, there's a different attitude. Like, let me connect with those soccer parents. And you hear about people who get into brawls at Little League games, and parents who beat each other they take their beach chairs and start hitting each other over Little League games. It's completely insane. Is the Little League game really important enough that you have to hit your neighbor with your lawn chair? And so, is there more to life than your kid winning the Little League game? And of course there is. There's the connection and the support, and you want to be friends with your neighbors instead of hitting them with your lawn chair. And so, let's use this. We're coming out of this pandemic time, and it's a time when we can really reset our values and really remember what's important. And so, we're starting our coach training once again in September. If you'd like to become a professional certified life coach, go to the link below here, because that's so many of the coaches have their lives changed by opening up their hearts to help other people. It can better your life by helping better yours. I know you're all kind people already, but isn't it nice to just take a moment to remember what's really important? And it's really important for me to get together with you like this once a week, and I get lots of nice notes. For me, that's important too. So, even a moment of connection like this makes our day better. And a lot of people watch this on the replay. That's just fine too. And it doesn't matter, because there's no time or space and spirit. And so if you're watching this on the replay, you are actually joining in this moment of connection that is really holy for all of us. And then you can just spread it along and connect with the next person you meet right wherever you are. So thank you for listening. I sure love you lots, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.